Get out, old man, you're filthing my restaurant. The manager's sneer rings through the kaiseki dining room, targeting a frail figure clutching a sea branch, Takeshi Reynolds, a Japanese billionaire in disguise. Shunned by all, he tests humanity's heart, meeting only contempt. Ready to abandon his empire, he encounters Ebony Harris, a black waitress whose ikebana passion defies prejudice. Her simple act of helping him unveils his identity, shattering injustice and forging a legacy of kindness. In a judgmental world, who have you seen triumph with compassion? Share below, like and subscribe to our channel for more soul-stirring stories. Join us to celebrate humanity's light. Takeshi Reynolds slumped in his leather chair, the neon glow from the city outside slicing through the office's glass walls. His fingers traced the edge of a medical report on the desk, the words liver disease and stress-induced, glaring in stark black ink. At 62, he'd built an empire of steel and concrete, but tonight his body betrayed him, whispering of limits he'd ignored. The report's warning, shortened lifespan without change, felt like a blade pressed to his throat. He shoved it aside, the paper crumpling under his grip. His laptop pinged, an email from a shell company flashing on the screen. It detailed operations at his kaiseki restaurant, a jewel in his portfolio, hidden behind layers of corporate veils. The numbers were pristine, sold-out reservations, soaring profits. But the staff notes soured his mood. Complaints of elitism, whispers of cruelty toward workers, a culture of greed. Takeshi's jaw tightened. This was his world, a mirror of the shallow empire he'd sculpted, a world where wealth drowned out humanity. Enough, he muttered, standing abruptly. His reflection in the glass stared back. A man in a tailored suit, silver creeping into his hair, eyes hollowed by years of isolation. He crossed to a locked drawer, pulling it open with a soft click. Inside lay a pair of pruning shears, their handles etched with cherry blossoms, a relic of a passion he'd buried. Ikebana, the art of floral arrangement, had once been his refuge, a secret he hid to fit the mold of a ruthless American tycoon. The shears felt heavy, grounding, a tether to a self he'd forsaken. He turned them over, the metal cool against his palm. The restaurant, with its polished veneer, would be his testing ground. He'd walk among them as no one, a laborer, invisible, searching for a spark of kindness in the cesspool of privilege. If no one saw him as human, his empire deserved to crumble. If someone did, they'd earn more than they could dream. "What are you hiding?" he said to the empty room, his voice low, almost a growl. The city's hum answered, indifferent. Takeshi moved to a closet, pulling out a tattered jacket, its seams fraying, and a worn knit cap. He shed his suit, the silk tie pooling on the floor like spilled ink. The jacket smelled of dust, the cap scratching his scalp. He grabbed a sea branch from a sidewalk planter outside, its leaves brittle, and tucked the shears into his pocket. "Show me," he said, addressing the world beyond. "Show me who you are." The elevator ride down was silent, the mirrored walls reflecting a stranger. Stooped, weathered, a man the world would overlook. His polished shoes swapped for scuffed boots. He stepped into the night, the city's pulse swallowing him. The restaurant wasn't far, but he walked, letting the cold bite his skin. Passers-by parted around him, their eyes sliding past, confirming his invisibility. A delivery boy nearly knocked him over, muttering, "Watch it, old man." Takeshi's lips twitched, not in anger but in resolve. This was the truth he sought, humanity stripped bare. The restaurant's entrance loomed ahead, its brass doors gleaming under soft lights. Inside, he knew, waiters in crisp uniforms served dishes priced like small fortunes, while guests preened in their wealth. He adjusted the cap, the seed branch clutched like a talisman, and pushed the door open. The warmth hit him first, a cocoon of clinking glasses and murmured laughter. Then came the stares, sharp, dismissive, cutting. A young couple in designer coats recoiled, their whispers sharp as glass. Takeshi kept his head low, the branch's dry leaves brushing his knuckles. He was here not as a king, but as a ghost, testing the living. "Excuse me," he rasped, approaching the host's podium. The man behind it, clad in black, barely glanced up. "I'd like a table." The host snorted, his pen pausing mid-scribble. "This isn't a soup kitchen. Try down the street." Takeshi's fingers tightened on the branch, its fragility mirroring his hope. I have money, he said, voice rough but steady. Doubt it, the host replied, waving him off. Move along. Takeshi didn't budge, his gaze locking onto the empty tables near the kitchen. He shuffled toward one, the branch trembling in his grip. The host called after him, but Takeshi sat, the chair creaking under his weight. He set the branch on the table, its stark lines calming his pulse. This was his stage now, his truth unfolding. A waiter breezed past, ignoring him. Another followed, their eyes trained to skip the unworthy. Takeshi leaned back, the shears a quiet weight in his pocket. Somewhere in this gilded cage he'd find his answer, or confirm the world's rot. The night was young, and he was ready to see it through. He sat a shadow among the light, waiting for someone to prove him wrong. Ebony Harris wove through the kaiseki restaurant's dining room, balancing a tray of steaming matcha cups. The clink of chopsticks and hum of wealthy chatter filled the air, but her focus was razor-sharp, dodging a guest's careless elbow. Her black uniform clung to her sweat-dampened skin, the long shift grinding her down. She set the tray on a lacquered table, offering a practiced smile to a couple dripping in diamonds. They didn't look up. More tea, please, the woman said, her voice clipped, eyes on her phone. Yes, ma'am, Ebony replied, voice steady despite the ache in her legs. She turned, catching her reflection in a polished screen. 26 black, her tight curls pinned back, eyes burning with quiet defiance. She was here for Malik, her 16-year-old brother whose piano audition loomed. The thought of his music pushed her through the night. At the service station, she poured fresh matcha, the earthy scent grounding her. Gavin Holt, the manager, loomed nearby, his starched suit as stiff as his sneer. Harris, he barked, you're moving like molasses. Table 6 is complaining. Ebony bit back a retort. I'm on it, Mr. Holt, she said, keeping her tone even. Gavin's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. Don't embarrass me, girl. You're lucky to be here. The word girl stung, a jab at her race and place in his world. Ebony's grip tightened on the teapot, but she nodded, swallowing the fire in her chest. She'd heard worse, from Gavin, from guests who saw her as invisible or inferior. Her mind flicked to Malik, his fingers dancing over piano keys, dreaming of a scholarship. For him, she'd endure. She delivered the tea, ignoring a guest muttered, slow service. Back at the station, she stole a moment to check her phone. A text from Malik. Sis, piano shop said $200 for the repair. Can we swing it? Her heart sank. Every penny from these shifts went to rent or his music. She typed back, I'll make it work. Keep practicing. Daydreaming again? Gavin's voice cut through. He stood too close, his cologne choking. Get to table 10, now. Ebony pocketed her phone, jaw set. Yes, sir, she said, her politeness a shield. As she moved, she passed the staff room, where a small vase of her own ikebana sat, a single lily angled in a ceramic dish, its simplicity a rebellion against the restaurant's excess. She'd arranged it during her break, a nod to the art she studied online. Ikebana taught her patience, finding beauty in sparse lines, a lesson she clung to in this hostile place. Waste of time, Gavin had scoffed earlier, spotting the vase. Flowers don't pay your bills, Harris. They keep me sane, she'd shot back, voice low but firm. Gavin had laughed, cold and dismissive, but Ebony didn't care. Ikebana was her anchor, a quiet defiance against his world. Now she approached table 10, where a man with a flashy watch waved her over. This sashimi's off, he complained, pushing the plate. Fix it. I'll get the chef, Ebony said, keeping her smile tight. As she turned, Gavin intercepted her, his face a mask of disdain. You're making us look bad, he hissed. One more screw-up, and you're out. Ebony's pulse spiked, but she held his gaze. I'm doing my job, Mr. Holt. Let me do it. His lip curled. Know your place, or I'll remind you. He stormed off, leaving her simmering. She signaled the kitchen, then paused, catching her breath. Ikebana's lesson echoed. Harmony comes from enduring. She wouldn't let Gavin break her. A commotion at the entrance drew her eye. A man in a tattered jacket shuffled in, clutching a sea branch. Gavin was already on him, voice dripping scorn. This isn't a shelter. Get out. Ebony watched, her stomach twisting. The man's quiet persistence, his refusal to shrink, stirred something in her. She'd seen too many turned away. People like her, judged by their skin or clothes. Gavin tossed a dollar bill at the man, the crowd's laughter a cruel chorus. Ebony's fists clenched. She'd had enough of this place's poison. She glanced at her vase in the staff room, its lily standing proud. Like her, it didn't belong here, yet it endured. She made a choice. Gavin could threaten all he wanted. She'd treat that man like a guest, like a human. For Malik, for herself, for the dignity they couldn't take. Ebony straightened, her resolve a quiet flame. She grabbed a fresh tray, her steps purposeful, heading toward the stranger's table. Ebony Harris gripped her tray, weaving through the kaiseki restaurant's crowded dining room. Her pulse thrummed as she approached the man in the tattered jacket, who sat defiantly at a table near the kitchen. His sea branch lay on the table, its dry leaves stark against the polished wood. Gavin Holt's voice still echoed from the entrance, his sneer cutting through the hum of wealthy diners. "Get out, or I'll drag you myself," he'd barked, tossing a dollar bill that now sat crumpled by the man's elbow. The man didn't flinch, his weathered hands arranging the branch into a deliberate pattern, angled, balanced, like an ikebana sketch Ebony recognized from her online studies. Ikenobo style, she thought, her curiosity spiking. She'd learned it from a mentor years ago, a friend who spoke of flowers as stories. This stranger, dismissed as a vagrant, moved with a quiet intent that didn't match his ragged clothes. "Keep moving, Harris," Gavin hissed, brushing past her to schmooze a table of suits. His eyes flicked to the stranger, promising trouble. Ebony ignored him, her tray steady. She'd seen enough people crushed under this place's elitism, herself included. Not tonight. She stopped at the man's table, setting down a glass of water. "Good evening, sir," she said, voice soft but clear. His head lifted, eyes sharp behind smudged glasses, studying her like a hawk. "I'm Ebony. Can I get you something?" He paused, fingers still on the branch. "You're serving me?" he rasped, voice rough, testing her. "Everyone's a guest here," she replied, meeting his gaze. She nodded at the branch. "That's a beautiful arrangement. Reminds me of Ikenobo." His eyes narrowed, a flicker of surprise breaking his stoic mask. "You know flowers?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. "A little," Ebony said, a small smile tugging her lips. "They teach you to see what others miss." She adjusted the glass, giving him space. "I'll bring you some tea if you'd like." Before he could answer, Gavin's shadow loomed. "Harris, what the hell are you doing?" His voice was a low growl, barely hiding his fury. Diners nearby turned, their whispers sharp. "This bum's not a customer. Get back to table 12. Ebony's jaw tightened, but she held her ground. "He's at a table, Mr. Holt. I'm doing my job." "Your job?" Gavin scoffed, stepping closer, his cologne choking. "Your job is to serve people who belong here, not some filthy drifter." He pointed at the man. "You, out. Now." The man didn't move, his hands still, the branch unmoved. "I'm staying," he said, voice steady, almost daring Gavin to act. Ebony's heart raced. She saw the same defiance she'd buried under years of slights. "Sir, please," she said to Gavin, her tone firm but measured. "He's not bothering anyone. Let me handle this." Gavin's face reddened, his finger jabbing at her. "You're on thin ice, girl. One more word and you're done." The word girl hit like a slap, its racial edge unmistakable. Ebony's fist clenched behind her tray, but she didn't back down. "Tea, then," the man said, cutting through the tension, his eyes locked on Ebony. "Matcha, if you have it." She nodded, grateful for the lifeline. "Right away." She turned, feeling Gavin's glare burning into her back. The dining room buzzed, guests murmuring about the scene. Ebony pushed through to the service station, her hands trembling as she prepared the matcha. She thought of Malik, his piano dreams, the reason she endured this place. She wouldn't let Gavin strip her dignity, or the stranger's. At the tea station, she measured the powder with care, the whisk's rhythm calming her. She glanced back at the man, still sitting, untouched by the room's hostility. His branch arrangement haunted her, its precision hinting at a story she couldn't place. Who was he to carry himself like that under such scorn? "Ebony, you're pushing it," a coworker muttered, passing by. "Gavin's livid." "Let him be," she said, voice low. She placed the match on her tray alongside a small ceramic vase she'd grabbed impulsively. If she was going down, she'd do it her way. She returned to the man's table, setting the tea and vase before him. Your matcha, sir, she said, her voice a quiet rebellion. And a place for your branch if you want it. He looked up, his expression unreadable, but his eyes softened, just for a moment. Ebony stepped back, her heart pounding, knowing she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Ebony Harris set the ceramic vase on the stranger's table, her fingers steady despite the storm brewing inside. The man's sea branch, now nestled in the vase, stood with quiet dignity, its ikonobo lines a stark contrast to the kaiseki restaurant's opulence. She poured his matcha, the steam curling like a whispered secret. "Hope this suits you, sir," she said, her voice soft but resolute. The man, his cap shadowing sharp eyes, nodded. "It does," he rasped, his tone carrying a weight Ebony couldn't place. "Why bother with me?" She met his gaze unflinching. "Because it's right. You're here, same as anyone." Her words hung in the air, a defiance she'd honed through years of slights. Before he could respond, Gavin Holt's voice sliced through. "Harris, are you deaf?" He stormed over, his suit pristine, but his face twisted with rage. "I told you to ditch this trash, not play florist." Diners craned their necks, their murmurs a hungry buzz. Ebony straightened, tray tucked under her arm. "He's a guest, Mr. Holt. I'm serving him." "A guest?" Gavin laughed, sharp and cruel. "This bum's got no business here, and neither will you if you keep this up." He leaned in, voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "Know your place, girl, or I'll put you back on the street where you belong." The racial jab landed like a fist, but Ebony's face stayed composed, her eyes blazing. "My place is doing my job," she said, each word deliberate. "You should try it sometime." A gasp rippled through nearby tables. The man with the branch leaned back, his fingers brushing the vase, watching the exchange with unnerving calm. Gavin's cheeks flushed crimson, his finger jabbing at Ebony. "You're done, Harris. One more stunt, and I'll fire you faster than you can blink." "Then fire me," Ebony shot back, her voice low but fierce. "But I'm not turning my back on someone who's done nothing wrong." She nodded at the man whose eyes flickered with something. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Gavin's lip curled, his gaze darting to the VIPs watching. "Table 8's waiting," he snarled. "Move, or you're out." He spun away, barking at another waiter to cover Ebony's section. Ebony exhaled, her hands trembling as she adjusted the vase. "Sorry for the trouble, sir," she said to the man, her smile tight. "I'll check on you soon." "No trouble," he replied, his voice softer now, almost curious. "You meant what you said." "Every word," she said, holding his stare. "Enjoy your tea." She turned, her heart pounding, the weight of her choice settling in. Malik's piano dreams flashed in her mind. $200 for repairs, rent due, her savings a thin thread. Risking her job was reckless, but letting Gavin's cruelty win was worse. She crossed to table 8, where a man in a silk tie waved her over. "This steak's warm," he complained, shoving the bottle. "Do your job right." "Yes, sir," Ebony said, her voice mechanical as she took the bottle. The words echoed Gavin's earlier jab, each one a reminder of her place in their eyes. She signaled the kitchen, her mind still on the stranger. His branch arrangement gnawed at her, its precision hinting at a story she couldn't unravel. Who carried themselves like that, dressed like nothing? Back at the service station, she swapped the sake, her hands moving on autopilot. A coworker leaned in, voice low. "Ebony, you're nuts. Gavin's gunning for you now." "Let him," she said, her tone clipped. She grabbed a fresh tray, her resolve hardening. She'd faced worse than Gavin, landlords, debt collectors, the sting of being dismissed as less. Ikebana had taught her to find beauty in the broken, to stand tall despite the cracks. She wouldn't bend now. As she passed the stranger's table, she caught him sipping the matcha, his fingers tracing the vase's rim. He didn't look at her, but she felt his attention, a quiet intensity that set her nerves alight. Gavin was nearby, his eyes locked on her like a predator. The air crackled, the dining room a stage for the clash to come. Ebony squared her shoulders, her tray a shield. She'd made her stand, and there was no going back. Ebony Harris forced her steps steady as she crossed the kaiseki restaurant's dining room, the tray in her hands a flimsy anchor. The stranger's matcha cup sat empty on his table, the sea branch in its vase a quiet rebellion against the room's polished cruelty. Her defiance, serving him despite Gavin Holt's orders, burned in her chest, but the cost loomed. Malik's piano repair, her rent, her fragile savings, all hung by a thread. Gavin's voice boomed from the service station. Harris, front and center. His suit was immaculate, but his face twisted with fury, eyes glinting like a predator's. Diners paused, forks hovering, sensing blood in the water. Ebony set her tray down, her pulse hammering. She'd crossed him, and now the reckoning came. What's this about, Mr. Holt? She asked, voice calm but edged, stopping a few feet from him. You know damn well, he spat, stepping close, his cologne choking. You ignored my orders, wasted time on that filthy drifter. He jerked his head toward the stranger, who sat unmoving, his hands folded, watching with unnerving stillness. Table 8's complaining, and you're playing charity case. Ebony's fist clenched behind her back. I served a guest, she said, each word deliberate. That's my job, same as yours. Your job? Gavin laughed, sharp and venomous. Your job is to keep this place classy, not turn it into a homeless shelter. You're a disgrace, girl. The word girl landed like a slap, its racial sting drawing gasps from nearby tables. A woman in pearls whispered to her companion, their eyes darting to Ebony. She held her ground, chin high. Call me what you want, but I'm not the one tossing money at people to feel big. Her gaze flicked to the dollar bill still crumpled by the stranger's table, a reminder of Gavin's earlier scorn. Gavin's face purpled, his finger jabbing at her. You're done, Harris. Fired. Get your things and get out. The words echoed, silencing the room. Diners stared, some smirking, others uneasy. Ebony's heart sank, Malik's piano flashing in her mind, but she refused to let her face betray her. I'll go, she said, voice steady, but I'm not sorry for doing what's right. She turned to the stranger, her eyes softening. I apologize, sir, for not finishing your service. Her voice cracked, just barely, but she held her posture, pride unbroken. The stranger's eyes met hers, sharp and unreadable, his fingers brushing the vase. You did enough, he said, voice low, carrying a weight that made her pause. Gavin snorted, stepping between them. Enough? She's a nobody, and so are you. He leaned toward the stranger, voice dripping with contempt. You're both trash, cluttering my restaurant. Security's on the way. Ebony's breath caught, the injustice searing. She took a step toward the exit, her legs heavy, each one a battle against the urge to scream. Malik's dreams, her own, she'd fought so hard only to be cast out for kindness. Her hand grazed her apron pocket, where she kept a small lily petal from her ikebana, a reminder of resilience. She wouldn't let Gavin see her break. Stop! The stranger's voice cut through the room, not loud but commanding, like a blade slicing silk. Every head turned. He rose from his chair, slow and deliberate, his tattered jacket somehow less ragged in the light. His cap shadowed his face, but his presence filled the space, silencing even Gavin's sneer. Ebony froze, her hand on the door. The stranger's eyes locked on Gavin, then flicked to her, a glint of something, anger, resolve, sparking within them. No one leaves, he said, his tone final, each word a stone dropped into still water. Gavin laughed, but it was shaky, his bravado cracking. Who do you think you are, old man? Sit down before I have you thrown out. The stranger didn't blink. His hand slipped into his pocket, fingers closing around something Ebony couldn't see. The air thickened, the diner's whispers fading to a hush. Ebony's heart raced. She didn't know this man, but his stand, his refusal to shrink, mirrored her own. She stayed rooted, sensing the tide shifting. Gavin took a step forward, his voice rising. You're nothing, he spat, but doubt crept into his eyes. The stranger's lips curved, a thin, cold smile. He stepped into the light, his posture shifting. No longer a laborer's slouch, but something regal, unyielding. Ebony's breath hitched. Whatever happened next, she knew it would change everything. Takeshi Reynolds shed his tattered jacket, letting it fall to the kaiseki restaurant's polished floor. His tailored black shirt gleamed under the soft lights, his posture radiating a commanding presence that silenced the room. Ebony Harris stood frozen by the door, her hand still on the handle, her breath caught as the stranger transformed before her eyes. Gavin Holt's sneer faltered, his face paling as Takeshi stepped forward, each move deliberate, a king reclaiming his throne. You're done, Holt, Takeshi said, his voice low but sharp, cutting through the stunned silence. He pulled a sleek phone from his pocket, pressing a button. Security, main dining room. Now! His eyes never left Gavin, who stood rooted, his earlier bravado crumbling. "What is this?" Gavin stammered, his voice cracking. You can't be serious. You're just a—" "Quiet," Takeshi snapped, his tone a whip. The diners leaned forward, their whispers a faint hum, forks abandoned. Ebony's heart pounded. She'd sensed something in this man. But this? She tightened her grip on the door, torn between fleeing and staying. Gavin forced a laugh, his hands raised. "Look, old man, I don't know what game you're playing, but this is my restaurant. You're nobody." Takeshi's lips curled into a cold smile. "Your restaurant?" He stepped closer, his presence towering despite his modest frame. "I own every table, every plate, every drop of sake in this place. I am Takeshi Reynolds." The name landed like a thunderclap. A woman gasped, her glass clinking against her plate. Gavin's jaw dropped, his eyes darting as if seeking escape. Ebony's mind raced. She'd heard of Reynolds, the reclusive billionaire, a shadow behind empires. But here, in her world? "Impossible," Gavin croaked, but his voice betrayed him, thin and desperate. "You're lying." Takeshi ignored him, turning to Ebony. "Miss Harris," he said, his voice softening, "you showed me what service means. Stay." His gaze held hers, a quiet respect that steadied her trembling hands. She nodded, stepping back from the door, her resolve reigniting. The brass doors swung open, two security guards in black suits entering with clipped precision. Takeshi pointed at Gavin. "Remove him. He's fired, effective immediately." "No!" Gavin lunged forward, his face a mask of panic. "You can't. I've run this place for years. I have a family." His voice broke, but the guards grabbed his arms, their grips unyielding. "You ran nothing," Takeshi said, his tone lethal. "You built a shrine to greed, humiliated those beneath you, and insulted a woman who outshines you in every way." He glanced at Ebony, her apron still tied, her eyes wide but unyielding. "You judged me by my clothes, Holt, and her by her skin. That's your failure." Gavin struggled, his shoes scuffing the floor. "Harris is nothing. She's just a waitress, He cut off as a guard twisted his arm, silencing him. Ebony's chest tightened, the racial sting of his words echoing, but she held her head high, refusing to let them wound her. "Take him out," Takeshi ordered. The guards dragged Gavin toward the doors, his protests fading into a pathetic whine. The crowd watched, some in shock, others with thinly veiled satisfaction. Ebony's breath steadied. She'd faced his venom for months, and now he was gone. Takeshi turned to the diners, his voice calm but firm. "My apologies for the disruption. Your meals are complimentary tonight. Enjoy." A murmur rippled through the room, but no one dared speak louder. He faced Ebony again, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk, Miss Harris. Will you come with me?" Ebony hesitated, her mind flashing to Malik, to the rent, to the job she'd just lost. But something in Takeshi's eyes, recognition perhaps, or a shared defiance, pulled her forward. "Yes," she said, her voice steady, though her hands shook as she untied her apron. "Good," Takeshi said, gesturing toward the doors. He picked up the small vase with the C branch, tucking it under his arm, a quiet nod to her gesture. Ebony followed, her steps light despite the weight of the moment. The diner's stares burned into her back, but she didn't look at them. She'd stood her ground, and now she was walking into something unknown. Takeshi held the door, his pruning shears a faint outline in his pocket. The night air waited beyond, cool and sharp, a new chapter unfolding. Ebony stepped through, her heart racing but her spirit unbroken, ready for whatever came next. Ebony Harris slid into the plush leather seat of the sleek car, the door closing with a soft thud that sealed out the kaiseki restaurant's chaos. Takeshi Reynolds sat across from her, the small vase with the C branch resting on his knee, its delicate lines catching the faint glow of passing streetlights. His pruning shears glinted in his pocket, a quiet reminder of the man he'd hidden. Ebony's hands fidgeted, her apron discarded, but the weight of her firing was still heavy. Malik's piano, her rent, everything teetered on the edge. Takeshi broke the silence, his voice calm but deliberate. "You risked your job for me, Miss Harris." "Why?" Ebony met his gaze, her eyes steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Because no one deserves to be treated like nothing. Not you, not me." He nodded, a flicker of respect crossing his face. You saw past the rags. That's rare. He leaned forward, the vase steady in his grip. I own a collection of ikebana works, hundreds of pieces, locked in a warehouse, mismanaged by suits who see them as assets, not art. I want to change that. Ebony's brow furrowed, her fingers stilling. Change it how? A center, Takeshi said, his tone firm. A place to teach ikebana, free for anyone, especially those the world overlooks. I want you to run it. Her breath caught, the words landing like a stone in still water. Me, she said, voice cracking. I'm a waitress, Mr. Reynolds. I arrange flowers in my spare time, not manage whatever this is. You're more than a waitress, he countered, his eyes piercing. You saw beauty where others saw garbage. That's what this needs. He tapped the vase, the branch unmoving. I'll provide everything. Funds, staff, a building. And for your brother, Malik, I'll cover his piano lessons, his audition fees, whatever he needs. Ebony's heart skipped. Malik's face flashed in her mind, his fingers on the keys, his dreams so close yet so far. How do you know about him? She asked, suspicion edging her voice. I listen, Takeshi said simply. You mentioned him at the restaurant, his music. I know what it means to fight for someone else. She shook her head, the offer too vast, too surreal. I can't. I'm not qualified. I'll mess it up, ruin your collection, embarrass myself. Her voice trembled, the weight of her doubt spilling out. I'm nobody. Takeshi's expression softened, but his voice held steel. Nobody? You stood up to a bully who'd have crushed most. You gave me dignity when I had none. That's not nobody. He pulled the pruning shears from his pocket, their cherry blossoms etched in moonlight. Take these, use them to build something beautiful. Ebony stared at the shears, her throat tight. Why me? She whispered. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. And there's something else. He paused, his eyes searching hers. You learned ikebana from a friend, yes? Someone who spoke of a man who loved flowers? She nodded, confused. Yeah, years ago. He was intense about it. Said flowers told stories. Why? That was my friend, Takeshi said, his voice low, almost reverent. He knew me before I buried this part of myself. He taught you, and now you're here, arranging my branch like it was fate. He leaned closer, the vase between them. This isn't chance, Miss Harris. It's a call. Ebony's mind reeled, the connection hitting her like a spark. She remembered her mentor's stories, his passion for ikebana, his cryptic mentions of a friend who lost his way. Was this him? Her hands shook, the shears a daunting weight as Takeshi held them out. I'm scared, she admitted, voice barely audible. I've fought for everything, Malik, my place here. If I fail, it's not just me who pays. You won't fail, Takeshi said, his certainty unwavering. You have the heart for this. The rest, budgets, logistics, I'll teach you. But heart, that's yours alone. She looked at the shears, then at the vase, the branch's stark beauty a mirror of her own resilience. Malik's music, her own dreams of ikebana, the chance to be more. They pulled at her, drowning her fears. She reached out, her fingers closing around the shears, their metal cool and solid. Okay, she said, her voice steady now, a fire kindling within. I'll do it. For me, for Malik, for this. She tapped the vase, her eyes meeting Takeshi's. No longer a waitress, but a woman stepping into her power. Takeshi smiled, a rare, genuine curve of his lips. Good. We start tomorrow. Ebony gripped the shears, her resolve a quiet blaze, ready to carve her path. Ebony Harris stood at the front of the Ikebana Center's sunlit room, her hands guiding a young girl's fingers to angle a lily in a shallow dish. The space buzzed with quiet energy. Children from rough neighborhoods, retirees, single mothers, all bent over vases, arranging flowers with careful intent. 6 months since that night at the Kaiseki restaurant, Ebony's world had shifted. She wore a simple blouse now, the pruning shears Takeshi Reynolds gave her tucked in her pocket, a talisman of her new path. See how the stem leans? She said to the girl, her voice warm. It's telling a story. Let it breathe. The girl nodded, her eyes bright, a smile breaking through her shy demeanor. Ebony stepped back, scanning the room. Vases dotted every table, their blooms vibrant against the white walls, sunlight streaming through tall windows. A soft piano melody drifted from a corner, played by a teenage volunteer, its notes weaving through the chatter. She caught her reflection in a glass pane. 26. Black, her curls loose, her face alight with purpose. Malik's piano audition was funded, his new instrument secured, thanks to Takeshi's promise. Ebony's rent was paid, her debts eased, but this center was her true reward. She'd built it from nothing, learning budgets and schedules under Takeshi's sharp guidance, turning his vision into reality. Miss Harris, an older man called, holding up a vase with crooked branches. This looks right? Ebony crossed to him, adjusting a twig. It's perfect, she said, smiling. The beauty's in the flaws. He beamed, his hands steadier now. She taught them all that ikebana wasn't just flowers. It was about seeing value where others saw none, a lesson she'd lived. The door opened and Takeshi stepped in, his tailored coat a contrast to the room's warmth. His silver hair caught the light, his face softer than that night at the restaurant. He moved quietly, observing, his pruning shears still in his pocket, a mirror to hers. Ebony met his gaze, nodding in welcome. He'd visited often these months, less a boss than a partner, his health stronger since shedding the weight of his empire's lies. You've done well, he said, stopping beside her, his voice low but clear. This place, it's alive. It's theirs, Ebony replied, gesturing to the students. I just gave them a start. She paused, her fingers brushing the shears. Like you gave me. Takeshi's lips twitched, a rare half-smile. You gave yourself this. I only opened the door. He looked at a boy arranging daisies, his small hands precise. They remind me of you, unafraid to stand out. Ebony's chest warmed, but she shook her head. I was terrified. Still am sometimes. She thought of Malik, practicing now, his music carrying her through those early daunting days running the center. But I kept going. For him, for me. Good, Takeshi said, his eyes on the boy's vase. Fear means you're pushing forward. He turned to her, his expression serious. I came to give you something. She frowned, curious, as he reached into his coat and pulled out a small ikebana vase, its glaze a deep blue, holding a single sea branch. Her branch from that night. This belongs here, he said, handing it to her. A reminder of where we began. Ebony took it, her throat tight. The branch, once brittle, now felt timeless, its lines echoing their shared journey. Thank you, she said, her voice soft but firm, for seeing me. You saw me first, Takeshi replied, his tone carrying a weight that needed no explanation. He stepped back, letting her return to the students. Ebony set the vase on a central table, its presence grounding the room. She addressed the class, her voice carrying. Every flower, every stem, it's a piece of you. Don't hide it. Let it shine. The students nodded, their hands moving with newfound confidence. A girl at the back raised her voice small but clear. Miss Harris, flowers bloom when they're loved, right? Ebony's smile widened, her heart full. Exactly, she said, her eyes meeting Takeshi's across the room. He gave a slight nod, his own vase from that night tucked under his arm, a silent agreement. The piano's melody swelled, the sunlight danced across the vases, and Ebony stood tall, her shears a quiet weight. She'd found her place, not just for herself, but for everyone here. Takeshi watched, his own purpose renewed, the center a testament to their shared defiance. Thank you for joining the journey of the Silent Shogun and the Blossom of Respect. Ebony and Takeshi's story shows how kindness can transform lives. What did you think of their courage? Have you ever seen compassion change someone's path? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear. Your support means everything, so please like, share, and stay tuned for more heartfelt stories. See you next time.